In 1644, China was in turmoil. The peasant army that occupied Beijing was quickly destroyed by an invading Manchu army from the north. The Manchus crossed the Shanghai Pass, took Beijing, and were heading south to destroy all remnants of the Ming dynasty. Within a few years, they would take Nanchang. The Manchus were determined to conquer China, a conquest that would be completed almost 40 years later in 1683, after numerous battles and rebellions. Only then was it safe for the mountain man to come out of hiding. Badashanren, the mountain man of the Eight Greats, was born as Zhu Da in 1626 into a family of scholars, poets, and calligraphers, and to a branch of the Ming royal family in Nanchang. Zhu Da was a direct descendant of Zhu Chuan, the Prince of Ning, a princedom that was abolished over 100 years earlier after a rebellion by his distant relative, Zhu Chenhao. Zhu Da was a child prodigy and began writing poetry and painting at a very early age. However, the peaceful world of his youth was shattered to pieces by the violent rise of the Manchus. He was about 18 years old when the Manchus took over Beijing, and around 19 when Manchu forces occupied Nanchang. To disguise his identity and hide his Ming imperial lineage, he took refuge in a Buddhist monastery after the Manchu conquest and the deaths of his immediate family. During his stay at the monastery, he became a Buddhist priest and soon after a respected Buddhist master, quickly attaining the position of abbot. He also became an accomplished poet and painter. His earliest work still in existence is an album of 15 leaves from 1659, currently on display in the National Palace Museum in Taipei. By 1672, Zhu Da, already in his 50s, finally determined that the Qing dynasty was sufficiently established and no longer posed a threat. Shortly after the death of his Buddhist master, Abbot Hong Min, Zhu Da left the monastery to become a professional painter. History is unclear on when Zhu Da went mad. Perhaps it was the fall of the Ming dynasty and the death of his family that caused him to lose his mind. Perhaps something else. Perhaps he was not mad at all, but only an eccentric artist that no one understood. Reportedly, one day Zhu Da began laughing and crying uncontrollably. He tore off his priest's robe and set it on fire. The burning of the robe signaled the end of Zhu Da's life as a Buddhist monk and the beginning of his life as a painter. Between 1681 and 1684, he called himself Lu, or donkey, a derogatory name for monks, or Lu Hu, donkey house. During this period of his life, his style of painting and calligraphy changed radically and became far more abstract, a change influenced by the inner turmoil from which he was suffering. In 1684, he took the name Badashanren, Mountain Man of the Eight Greats, and lived the rest of his life in Nanchang as an eccentric Taoist hermit. Scholars have speculated that Zhu Da chose this name because the Chinese characters resembled the words for laugh and cry, suggesting he was making a veiled reference to the anguish and absurdity of his forced isolation. A staunch Ming loyalist throughout his life, Zhu Da used painting as a means of protest. His works are the poignant voice of the Yimin, the leftover subjects of the fallen dynasty. As he once wrote, "There are more tears than ink in my paintings."
Yang 对，远古。